Hello and welcome to another podcast of I Am Here. And today we're going to be doing SEN and Me, We Care, We Matter. You know what? I'm very excited today. We haven't been doing this podcast for a while, so I'm really excited to be back to be discussing about special needs. And if you're not really sure what this podcast is about, I encourage you to watch the first podcast that I did with a lovely mother who has two special needs children. So SEN stands for Special Educational Needs. And the purpose of this particular podcast is to really give a platform that would allow the voice of mothers and fathers, carers and guardians who have special needs children to speak and share their experience. Because I think it's very clear that as mothers, as fathers, we are very much underrepresented in what we go through. And if you didn't know so already, I'm a mother of three beautiful children, and one of my children is considered SEN, special educational needs. So this is why it's very dear to my heart. So today I am honored to be with one beautiful mother who is a, a long friend of mine, and she is here to share her story. So I'm gonna hand over the floor to you.
Oh, hi there, Felicia. Thank you so much for having me. I'm also very excited to be part of the podcast, and congratulations. I'm very proud of you and what you're doing here, because it is definitely something that is underrepresented, as you say, and also very much misunderstood, or not understood enough. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are not in the situation can't totally relate, because unless you're going through it, there's nowhere the information is sort of spread or shared. And I guess technically it doesn't, people don't feel that it needs to be, because unless it affects you, you just get on with your everyday life. And I think that's what I found during these last, I mean, my daughter's 13 now. And that's what I found, that, unless it specifically involves a person, they're not really interested, in the facilities and resources are not available to help the general public understand. I think we've definitely come a long way. Now people have like this autistic lanyards, with the sunflower that you can wear, or perhaps if
Yeah.
you have a hidden disability. So I'm glad to see that there are improvements. But yes, we still have a long way to champion for the children with SEN and other needs.
Absolutely. I like the fact that you mentioned we have a long way to champion for the children. But like you also kind of mentioned is that as the parent, of a child that has all these extra needs, people really don't understand our day-to-day struggles and what we go with. And you spoke about your daughter. Feel free to discuss that more. But in order to get people to understand, how would you describe a day in the life of a mother raising a child with special educational needs?
Wow. Okay. Well, where do you start? I mean, first of all, I mean, I know that as a parent, nothing is the same. Every day can bring something new. Children bring you new challenges every day. Um, Challenges, plus also, of course, the good side, the happy, funny stuff that they do. But I think what can tend to happen in the life of a parent of a child with special educational needs, or I mean, personally, I don't even call my child SEN, because what I realized was, for us personally, it
Sure.
didn't actually cover or encompass what her situation is. So my daughter's currently, the official term is cerebral palsy, which again, we didn't really get that diagnosis. So we've just worked it out over the years. Um, and she's in a wheelchair, so she's a full-time wheelchair user. She cannot manage the wheelchair herself, so it's an aided equipment, so you'd have to have somebody doing it. So already that just tells you that for her to get around or to do anything, she needs assistance. When you say SEN, most people think it perhaps is autism related, or from an educational perspective, they might need a little bit of extra help. I think what we found, and again, this is just from our experience, we've not necessarily dealt with autism, but from a cerebral palsy wheelchair user, she uses a gastrostomy, which is basically a peg that's in the stomach, and that's how she's fed. So she's not eating. She's also nonverbal, so she'll just make sounds and use her eyes to communicate. So that level, very high level of sort of, I guess you'd say, disability, doesn't really seem to be covered by the phrase SEN, And if I say to somebody, I've got my child with SEN, they might think, okay, maybe she can walk herself from A to B. Perhaps she's feeding, even though she may not do it like another child would. But the severity of her disability, I think, is something that I've always found hard to get across to people. And they literally only understand when they see her. I'm not saying I want them to understand for any sort of sympathetic reasons, but I think, it's just going back to your point about what is the normal day in the life. And what they don't understand is that the physical, I suppose what's happened over the years, you see, I mean, we're 13 years in the game now. So it has changed. It's not the same as when she was younger. When she was younger, we were going through more the emotional aspect of it, why has this happened? Why is she why is she suffering in this way? Was there something, as a mom as well, you just have all this mom guilt. Was it something I did during, the pregnancy? Was there anything I could have done to prevent this? So then after you finish beating yourself up, you go through all the different emotions, the usual anger, acceptance, but it takes years to get to that point. But what happens as the child gets older is your emotional balance kind of, you find a way to manage, you get on with it, sort of thing. I haven't slept in 13 years, but
wow,
emotionally you get to a point where you've accepted, you've tried your best. I mean, we did things like taking her to special clinics in Belgium, we did fundraising to go and do some special treatments. You never give up. We took her to other we've taken her to like several different countries just trying to get help.
And which countries were those, if you want me asking?
Well, we've Belgium, Germany, South Africa,
Wow.
not necessarily just medical help, but alternative therapies. Like there was something we did called ABR. And yes, ABR, and they use like sort of, it's more like a physio based, but it helps. So I mean, we've just done so many different things. So at some point you kind of go, right, I've just got to not necessarily accept, but just kind of say, right, I've got to have a life even within this situation, and I think after some years you get to that point. So emotionally things kind of settle down. But then for us, just when that happened, is when now the physical side actually started to become more of an issue, because now she was getting bigger. Now she was, needing to be moved and carried into a wheelchair. When she's 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, you can manage. When the child is 7, 8, 9, 10, almost as tall as you, that's where now you go, right, I'm facing a different problem. And I think, back to the point of what is a normal day. And I think there's just no such thing as an average normal day, because there are so many different challenges from all aspects. I think also, we mustn't forget, and probably a lot of parents would go through this, and carers. It's not just you. Once you have a child with special needs, you're also dealing with, your local authority, and you're also dealing with doctors, nurses. My daughter, for example, at her school, it's a special needs school, so they do have a nursing team, and I must say they're really great. They're one of our best helps, if you know what I mean. If there's an issue with the doctor, they're in there and so forth. And I wish that for any parent who has any child who has special needs. You do need an advocate. In the first few years you're so angry, you just want to do everything yourself, and you kind of don't trust anybody, and you just don't see what they could bring to the table. But over the years, I think that service for us particularly has really, really been helpful. They've advocated for us when we're going in for surgeries. They come with us to hospital appointments. You really build quite a special relationship with them. Another thing I'd really advocate for parents would be to say, get yourself some care, even if it's just an hour or two a day. It would make the world of difference. I know another mom who, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about, because no, sorry, I mean, because the fact that you've mentioned that, in the beginning there was high emotion, there was this lack of acceptance, and then as much as you went to the different countries to seek for help, this is all financial cost. So Just to go back on that, let's talk about how, explain to us that emotional state and to before, sorry, you reach the acceptance of, okay, this is it.
Um, it honestly, it varied. Some days you just feel, and I think there's something that carries you through, and that's just trying to make sure that the child is okay. So no matter what your emotional state, whether you're on a day where it's like, oh, that was a great day, I managed to take her out, or oh my gosh, this is a terrible day, I've been stuck at home for the last week and I had made a plan today to go somewhere, and then her wheelchair got stuck, or she had a fit, or there's so many factors that can just literally ruin your day. And some days you just think, right, today I just want to have a good cry, you know um but underlining all of that is what is best for the child. So I think, and many moms will say, I don't think I can make it, I don't think I can cope, I don't know how much more I can take. And trust me, we all go through that. You question yourself, you question your abilities, you question if you're even the right person for the job. Crazy thoughts will cross your mind, crazy thoughts like, do I need to put her in a home? Maybe they'll do a better job than I am. But I think just knowing that you're doing the best you can is really what will help you get through whatever emotional state or stage you may be at. I mean, even just parenting sort of children without any extra needs is already a challenge. It's already, parents question themselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation you will, but I think, to be fair, you probably don't have as much time to, though, because you are so busy running to appointments. In my case, my child, she wears nappies, so she needs to be changed by me or myself with carers. So you literally don't have the time. And I think what I would say is, during all these emotional fluctuations, and
Yeah.
I didn't have an opportunity to do this, but if I could go back, I think one thing I'd say would be, you really got to accept help quickly, the sooner you can, because I had, like I said, and it's not a joke when I say I've not slept for 13 years, because of course, after she was finally beginning to sort of settle down and sleep a little bit better, I only went and had another child, thankfully, who doesn't have any special needs, but that just meant I did not sleep again.
Yeah.
We were
The
about to
years
get there, and
doubled.
then, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway. But you really accept the help, because that will also help you regulate those emotions. If you're exhausted, tired, I mean, I remember a time when they were saying, oh, well, maybe you need antidepressants, and I was like, I don't believe so, because I've never had issues. And then I realized I'm just that exhausted that, medically speaking, it was even looking like a depression. And I was like, but I'm not depressed, but I was so exhausted and so tired, and they wanted to potentially even get me on sort of medication. And I was like, all I need is a couple of hours of sleep at night, not just a one-off solution, or sort of what I would consider a band-aid. I'm not saying people who need those things, excuse my voice, I'm not saying people who need that help shouldn't get it, but what I'm saying is just monitor your emotional health by trying to, eat right, sleep well. And of course, it's much easier said than done. You have issues where people, of course, maybe lose partners because of the stress. I mean, there's a huge stress on a relationship when you go through this. Um, but yeah, I think that would be my key takeaway from that part, that, as much as you're going through all those emotions and you're exhausted, just try and get a little help, whether it's in the form of family, friends. I mean, friends don't really always understand, and they have their own lives going on. So if you can get, even if it's a social workers to come in and assess the situation and see if you need some help, don't be afraid to get that help. Honestly, I wish I'd done that sooner, and I'll probably look 10 years younger
Oh,
if I
wow.
had. So I think that would be my key takeaway from that. Yeah.
How long would you say it took before you said, I'm going to get the help from the
Funny enough,
family?
it was more a case with the social services. Obviously, because we're always at hospitals, and we're kind of going, right, this child needs, there's a mobility aspect, which most parents would hear about if you're in this situation, where maybe the child now can't get around, on public transport or in your normal car. And you start getting letters, you want carers allowance. So I would say as well, one thing is, there's so many benefits that are available for children and carers. People need to look into those. But when you start kind of being told by, your social services, or doctors will say, we're going to refer you here and there, you don't know anything about it. So you just kind of go, oh, okay. They kind of force you into it, because you don't really know what you need, I think, at that point. You're just trying to make it through each day.
Yeah.
And before we knew it, then they'd offered us a respite center, which was out in Guildford. really beautiful place. Obviously, it was funded, so we weren't able to. We're no longer, we don't receive that service anymore. But at that time, there was nothing like it to me. We could go there and have a sleep upstairs and then look after the child downstairs for a night or two, and you wouldn't believe how much difference that would make. So I think it was basically brought to us. We didn't go out searching for it. And that's why I'm saying that if I'd only known, or somebody had said something sooner, we really would have. So I think, yeah, it took a couple of years. I think when we finally did start accessing that, she was just about 5, I think. And she was also just about to start, like, her special needs school, which again, we didn't access every single day. She was only going once or twice a week, because then her fits would become worse. And at that time, I think she was still feeding through a tube, an NG tube, which goes into the nose, because we were also refusing to have surgery on her stomach, because we just kept thinking, she'll be okay. She'll be okay. Part of that denial, right?
Yes,
So
no.
yeah, so I think with the emotional part and just getting the help, it took years. It really was not an overnight thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that, and hence why I asked the question, because I think when we speak about all I need is a couple of hours sleep, people don't realize how much that is needed as a parent looking after a child that has special needs. I mean, my daughter, she was diagnosed with autism, and she's at the age where she can't speak, and she does need that one-to-one assistant and help. And I think it's a case of, as mothers, we go on this autopilot. I know I did. And I wasn't truly aware of the resources that were out there, or
Yeah.
the extra help that you can get, because you just feel like I've got to do everything by myself. It's as if literally you just say, this is my sole responsibility. And by entering into that mind state, I found that I lacked sleep. I didn't have that personal time to myself. I'm only learning to do that now. But you just go into real mummy mode, I guess, where you just, everything is just focused on that child, and everything else is kind of laid to rest at that moment in time. And I love the fact that you mentioned that you highlighted the importance of having that rest and having that time to look after yourself. Because, when I did start to realize there were certain centers I can go to, certain play groups, every mother I spoke to, their response was, there's many mothers in the play group, by the way, but any mother I came across, literally, they were tired, they hadn't slept, they were constantly anxious,
Yeah.
worrying about the child, and these are the mind state that tends to kind of creep in. So, I mean, you've spoken a lot about the challenges, and I guess it kind of answered one of my questions in terms of what are the biggest challenges. I don't know if you kind of spoke about it, but if you were to single it down again, just to help the viewers understand more, for you and your personal well-being, what would you say was the biggest challenges you've ever faced raising your daughter?
Uh, you know, I think the biggest challenge has literally just been shouldering it all. Like you said, you just go into this autopilot, and you are just super mom, or at least so you think you are, not because you're trying to prove a point or do anything like that, but you just literally feel that nobody else can really understand, and I think in the beginning, even if you do try and talk to other people about it, they just don't get it. So, and I've had people, and this is actually something else, I've had so many people saying to me, oh, you're so strong, oh, you're such a great mom, oh, I don't know if I could do it. And I always say to them, you don't know until you're in the situation. You will do it. You will.
Yes,
I don't really believe that there's a mom who will not be able to do it.
yes,
Well, that being said, yes, they may be, but I don't think we should be praised in excess for what we
mm,
do, because we didn't ask for it. The child didn't ask for it, and we're doing the best we can with what we have. And I think that's where this thing about resources and what's available and the information. A lot of the information about what help I could get, I didn't know about. So if
yeah,
I'd known about that sooner, perhaps I wouldn't have been a martyr for so long. you know
yeah,
where you were so tired that you're mixing up your words, and you're putting, I don't know, your hair dryer in the freezer, for example, just from sheer tiredness. you can't function. If you're working most of the time, you can't continue. So it really takes away. And I think maybe the key takeaway I'd say would be, my main challenge would be just kind of feeling like you've had to put your whole life on hold, just stop your entire life as you know it. And it doesn't mean you will never, come out of that, or change that, or find a way to make it work. But definitely in the beginning, for me anyway, I just felt like this is not what I was expecting. What do I do now? And your whole life changes. I mean, it changes as a parent anyway. But in this way, and I think that's the other thing, with other parents, for example, okay, I'll give you a quick story if we have time there, Felicia.
Of course.
When my daughter was going to nursery, or at least when she was supposed to start nursery, obviously we started going around all the different nurseries, and nobody could take us. So even something where a child is entitled to go at 3 years old or whatever, to go, and the parents should have that respite. And you're talking about, general, children who, are quite busy, and parents need that little break, hence the nursery, and they get time to go and socialize as well, with other children. My daughter could not. So at that point, when other parents would even be able to get a little bit of a rest, where I needed it even more so, I wasn't able to. We finally got somebody who said, "Oh yeah, come along," and we went there. And the first morning, by lunchtime, they were saying, "We're sorry, we're not set up for this. We just can't do
Oh,
it."
wow.
It was so disappointing and soul destroying, really, because I was like looking forward to just a few hours. We finally found a really good one. This was, now she probably had about a year before school. And again, it was a huge, huge operation to get her in there. We ended up getting a carer from the local authority to go in with her so they could feed her, because she was using, a feeding pump, and just help her in case she had any fits. So we had to get extra funding, and I think that's another thing people need to know a bit more about funding opportunities out there. But anyway, so we finally did it, but it was literally almost a year just trying to get into a nursery, something that other parents would take for granted. Now, my point about the story is to say something so simple, and that's almost guaranteed. It's almost a given that every child and parent would go through that experience and go to your nursery for a year or so before you go to big school, as they say. We couldn't do something so simple. So that, to me, really highlighted how different my life was to the other moms who'd stand in the hallways and chat to each other and arrange play dates, and they'd just look at us and kind of go, "Oh, we don't know what's going on here, so we're not going to get too close." So I couldn't make friends. You lose a lot of friendships. It's hard to make friends, and the ones you do have, you tend to, not even out of choice, you just lose friendships. They just don't understand. But the moms in the nurseries would kind of, smile and nod. You just see the pitying look on their faces. So what could you do? You just take your child and go home. You'd never be invited to any of the little play dates and get-togethers other kids were having, because adults, worse than the kids, they don't know how to approach it. They don't know how to act. They don't know what to say to you. And it's been very long. It's been a very lonely journey. And I think that's the other side of it, that we do need to have communities, Facebook pages, whatever, where we can all talk to each other and arrange, one big SEN conference and party for the kids and the moms and stuff, because it is a very lonely journey. So I'd like to just say, before, I know we might be running out of time, I'd just like to say that it is lonely. It can be very difficult, but definitely there are ways to start making friends, to start having your own life outside of things. Look for funding, look for caring, help, support, whatever support you can get. Literally, even if it's just maybe using, a few coins to get someone to come in and do your laundry or clean up for you. I don't do that personally at this point because I've got other things I'm going on, but I'm just saying, find a way to get a bit of help, to get back in the community somehow. It's easier said than done, I know. Um, but try and hang on to as much of a semblance of what you consider a normal life as possible. And I know it's a challenge. That in itself is a challenge, but it will pay off, because one day you'll turn around and you'll be in a flow, and it may not be perfect, but you'll be in a flow and you're like, okay, I can still access a bit of this life that's out there, and also for my child, you know. So just never give up. Just never give up.
Absolutely. You know what, everything you said it so beautifully. And I think the key word that I took away from what you were saying was loneliness. because boy, does the journey get lonely sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that loneliness kicks in, especially when that flow hasn't started yet to how to do things, or you're kind of still trying to figure your way, like you're kind of like searching through the dark, you know.
Yeah.
Just listen to what you said. It reminded me of an incident when there was a time when my daughter, she was at the peak of her illness, but she was also quite ill as well. And anywhere I took her, and we're talking about play groups that's designed for small children to go and have fun. But in this situation or during that particular season, anytime I took her to this place, as soon as she entered into the environment, she would have a meltdown. She would scream. It actually looked as if she was trying to injure herself. She would pull her hair. She would just pull
Oh,
her body all about. And she would cause injury. She would be bleeding sometimes. And I'm
oh,
there trying to grapple with her just to get her to be calm. And you know, I noticed that all the mothers had stopped. They were just looking at me. And you just feel this feeling of maybe I should go now.
yeah,
You know, it's like they didn't understand what was happening. And it's no blame to any of the parents, but I felt more of a nuisance going to these places because literally as soon as we walked in, we walked out. And I'll just put, you know, our daughter back into the car and she'd be screaming, crying. I couldn't get her to settle, literally go home. And you enter into that world of feeling lonely.
yeah.
Because apart
And
from us caring for the children, it's like we don't also want to bother our fellow man beside us as well. You know, and we don't want to be judged as well, thinking, oh, you know, this child is out of control. So I definitely hear you on that.
definitely, and it's very disappointing, because you think, oh, finally, just a sliver of normalcy, just a little something that everybody else does, just a little bit, and then it doesn't happen, and you feel awful. You almost feel worse than if you're just not bothered at all. And I went through that for many years, where I thought, well, I'm not going to bother, because every time I go there, she's going to have a fit, and I'm going to be on the back of an ambulance, as opposed to, whatever event or social gathering we're trying to go to. And you do start to feel like, oh gosh, I am a burden on my friends or family or whoever it is I'm maybe with when something happens. And that feeling is not great. It's not great. And yes, you can find yourself becoming a bit of a hermit, which, again, like I say, I urge us to not do that. But
Yeah.
it is a very challenging time. No, it definitely is.
So just to briefly talk about, because I think this nicely kind of leads into the question I'm about to ask you. When we did turn into those hermits, I know I did, the support system around you, because I had a very strong support system, which I'm so grateful to the Most High for. Um, and I used to hear people say to me, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to have time to yourself. I even had a lovely family member say, listen, I'm willing to pay for childcare for you to just go and have some time to yourself. And I always turned it down. Um, Talk a bit about your support system, what it was, how it operated. Was it even helpful for you?
Um, my support system literally didn't exist, to be honest with you, apart from when I did start getting a bit of a care package put in place by our local authority. Simply because their father or her father was working all the time. And part of me, to be honest with you, and I know I'm about to put somebody on blast, as the kids say, but I do feel that those long, long, long hours and weekends at work were literally a way of escaping. Men don't know generally. I'm generalizing here, but at least this particular man did not know how to express their feelings, I think, and probably found it easier to be away. So, coming in as late as possible and leaving as early as they could for work, I think, to avoid the situation, not knowing how to be useful. So my support structure was really limited. My family lives, hours and hours out of London. The rest of them are abroad. So it's literally just been me for the longest time. And I think that's made it even harder to practice what I preach in terms of looking after yourself and so forth. But like I say, I guess I'm just there are days, like I say, when I get frustrating and I just wish it wasn't this way and so forth. But we are in a bit of a flow now obviously things keep changing. So now we're looking forward to her surgery. Well, not looking forward, but looking ahead to it. And I'm thinking, right, here we go again. This is about to get real. And, gosh, support, da da da. But
Do you
I'm
find it
kind of,
hard to ask for help?
it wasn't really finding it hard. It was just, who do I ask? There was nobody to ask for help. I remember even when the social services came by and they were kind of going like, okay, so do you have siblings? Where do they live? Do they have any children? Can they not help you? Are you part of a religious group? Is anybody from, your church or your mosque or whatever you go to that could potentially help you? They were looking in every pocket of my life to see who else I had. And we were just coming up empty, you know, because that was the reality. And I know a lot of parents, I've met a lot of moms at the hospitals and here and there who are in very, very similar situations. Even those who have partners or are married find themselves truly doing most of it on their own. It is very difficult in terms of support. Yeah.
Where would you say you derive your strength from in moments of weakness?
Well, one place is from my daughter's cute little smile, when she just looks at me and I do something that just makes her smile. And I just think, oh, it's all worth it, it really is all worth it. I derive my strength from that, and obviously from my God. And I derive strength from, I think, just knowing that I'm doing my best. Um, yeah, I think that's it really. It's just like those may I think the actual child gives me strength. And I always say to her, I say, you're my peace, you're my kindness, you're my understanding, because that's what to me she embodies as an innocent child. That's what she embodies to me. And I think, thank you for teaching me love. Thank you for teaching me patience. And thank you for teaching me kindness. You could have done it in a different way, child, but thank you. So she does, definitely, she's one of my sources of strength.
You mentioned that another source of strength is from your God. Would you like to discuss a bit about your faith and how your faith system has helped you?
um I think, you know what a and this is a very difficult one for me, because I went through actually some of the worst experiences when I was actually trying to share and be a part of my church family when I was going through this. And it did give me it left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. The place I was going for refuge and solace, I was actually getting a lot of that same judgment and that same, oh, we don't want to hear the story again, type of thing. And potentially I was probably repeating myself, but, would be coming in there exhausted, maybe just coming out of hospital the night before and so forth. So it took me a while to, and, obviously I left that church in the end and everything, but it took me a while to remember that it's actually not about the people in the building. It's about what you're going there to worship together. Everybody's going there because they're trying to also get, you know, potentially closer, or better, whatever, however you want to put it. We all have different religions, so it may not be relevant in all cases. But I just realized that it's more about being closer to the actual source, not the people around, because they're just people like us. They're not going to be perfect. So I think once I was able to do that, it actually built a stronger relationship for me with my God, in terms of just being able to hone in on prayer myself, um, not always being able to physically go as well, literally not able to physically make it, also in a way strengthened that my prayer life, because then I had to kind of do it on my own to a certain extent, like many things. So I think
Wow.
that, and then obviously with my family, would, whenever she was in hospital, would all be calling each other and having, prayer sessions and so forth. um so there's just been many ways where I've actually incorporated into my life more than potentially before I had her. So there's definitely been a strength that's drawn from that. And with surgery coming up, we're praying, we're just doing a lot more from a spiritual point of view, in terms of just praying for her protection, and for things to go well. And now also, I don't question, if things don't actually go according to plan, I don't fight and question it and try and fix it. I just kind of go, okay, well, you know what? Maybe that's God's plan, and just allow it, because you might be surprised that this is going to work out for the best. He has your best interest at heart. So why would this not work out? And I think that's what when I said Kira has taught me patience, my daughter's taught me patience, because before I was a very impatient person and I wanted to do it all myself, and now But knowing that I've actually relied on God for so many other things, it then says, well, if you've relied on him for X, Y, and Z, surely you can rely on him even more.
Wow. I am so glad that you actually realized that, it's not about the people in the church or the actual
Mm,
building itself, but who actually dwells there,
yeah.
Um, wow. And it just goes back to when we just spoke about the whole feeling of loneliness and the fact that you
Yeah.
went to a place for refuge, because we are supposed to fellowship together, but you actually didn't get that.
No.
But wow, we might have to bring up on a podcast with that one. But um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I'm just glad that you were able to separate, and I think that's the powerful takeaway. They're able to separate and go to the actual curator himself and get that solid.
That's
Wow,
right. We're about to have a worship session in here now.
we're about to, we're about to. I think we'll take it to future thinking now because we spoke a lot about the present. We
Yeah.
went to about, we spoke about emotions and how we felt and acceptance. I want to ask you a question in regards to you as a mother and the wonderful mother you are. What are your hopes, your dreams, and your prayers? And where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? 5 years always seems to be the round off number, but just where do you see yourself as a mother in the future?
Oh, okay. Loaded question there, Felicia.
It's loaded. If you want me to break it down, I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, hopes and dreams. I think I just want to be in a place where I'm self-sufficient again. Where I feel that I have a bit of a life. Working on that quite strongly. I think one of the things, I've mentioned about self-care, but for me, one of my first things that goes out the window is the sort of healthy practices. I do struggle with that, and I do find that that's one of the things that is really a weakness for me. So I want to find myself being able to take care of myself from the healthy eating and exercise point of view that I'm always just too exhausted to do. So I want to find myself in a place where maybe I'm self-sufficient enough to build on that, and to really be able to achieve that, because the healthier and stronger you keep yourself, the better you can do for your child or your children.
Absolutely.
So I think that's one of the main things, and like I said, being self-sufficient. So, as you know, Feli, I've worked on sort of trying to set up a few bits and bobs here. I will be back in touch once things are back up and running, but just little things that might be able to help other parents who are going through what we've been through, and just sort of taking care of some of the little things that you wouldn't think of. So I'd like to work on my business, get back into that, and just see where that takes me. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I've got another child as well, so I'd like to see her. She's about to start school, actually, her first year reception this September. So that's something quite big and exciting for the whole family. And she's so good with her sister. So I just want to see her growing up sort of with that understanding, with that kindness and caring that she already has, but also making sure, because this really does also bug me, making sure she has a life of her own, because so many things that I'd like to do with them, I can't always do. And I don't want her to miss out. So I think that's my main thing now. So, okay, I got to do the best I can so that they both have equally fulfilled lives, have a full childhood. And I think that's something that people forget about siblings of children with disabilities. Sometimes do get shortchanged, not by choice, but it just happens. So I think that's what it is. It's just about making the most of what I have, and just, my mom used to say, sucking the marrow out of the bone of life. And I thought it was an awful saying. I really thought it was disgusting, but I understand what she means now. Just
Yeah.
making the most. And I think
Absolutely.
healthy, happy, and safe is really what I want my family, to be, and how I would like my children to be, and do what I can to achieve that.
Fantastic. And what would be your word of, I think you've given a lot of steps. So you mentioned about taking care of yourself. You mentioned about dedicating that quality time for yourself, getting into a place where you have accepted your situation. If you were to really sum up for those mothers, fathers, carers, guardians of children, or even adults that have that additional need and need that support, what would would be your word of encouragement? What would you say to them?
Never give up. You need a lot of stamina for this. Never give up. Yes. Add a side note. P.S. It will get better.
Yes, thank you.
P.S. It
Thank
will get
you.
better.
Yes. Never give up. It will get better because it does. I think you mentioned it in the beginning, that flow. Once you get into the flow of things, once you have a better understanding of what you're dealing with, it will get better.
Yeah.
Faith.
And you notice I didn't say easier, but just better. There's a big difference.
You know what? Thank you so much for this podcast. Just hearing you speak, I know your story already, but just to hear the strength behind your voice, because you're still here. You're still here. You're still, I would say, you're still achieving. You know, as much as you may feel otherwise, you have achieved so much, and you really should be so proud of yourself.
Oh,
And
thank
to
you.
honestly, and to even come out and share it, it's not easy. It's not easy to share our journeys. It's not easy to share our pains. So honestly, thank you so much for sharing the journey with all of us.
Thank you for having me. I won't tell them that you bribed me, Felicia. I will keep that between ourselves. No, but
I
thank you.
think my mic didn't pick that up, so
Edit. No, but really, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for giving us the platform to talk about these things because, we do keep a lot of it inside. And like you said, there may be something that I've said that might help another parent. And that's all we'd hope for.
absolutely, and that's the key. So thank you once again.
Oh, thank you so, so much.